train. How many of you old-time libertarians have heard of the freedom train? Yeah, this is not a new idea. I didn't originate it. But here's the concept in a nutshell. Let's assume that all of the goals that we spoke of at the beginning of this talk, a libertarian America, are located in San Francisco. I know that's going to be hard for some of you here, but just play along with me now. And let's assume that our current state of affairs has us in Boston. But there's a train that's available to take us to San Francisco. It's called the Freedom Train. The train passes through with stops in Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, Kansas City, Denver, Salt Lake City, before reaching its final destination. The Freedom Train works like this. Each successive city represents smaller government, fewer taxes and regulation, and greater individual liberty. Pittsburgh is still big government, but it's not as bad as Boston. And Indianapolis is better still, and Kansas City is even better than that, and so on. Everyone on the train is moving the same direction, pointed towards San Francisco. But when you buy your pass and get on the train, you can choose to get off as soon as Pittsburgh, or as far down the line as Salt Lake City, or at any of the other stops along the way. When you get on the train, everyone is glad to see you, even if you're only going to Pittsburgh. You see, on the Freedom Train, they're having a ball. There's a marketing board. It tells how lovely San Francisco is. The conductor is passing out colorful brochures, telling how wonderful each successive stop is. In the lounge, you meet other passengers who've made the trip, and they tell you how wonderful it is. So you make some friends, and you decide to go on past Pittsburgh to find out what Indianapolis has to offer. As at this point, we've got you. Convincing you to go to Kansas City will be even easier, and to Denver even easier still, and eventually you'll find yourself in San Francisco. In fact, you'll enjoy the journey so much you'll end up like me and you'll want to hop a boat and head to Hawaii. In the past, the Freedom Train has been rightly criticized because there was no tactical way to do it without compromising our principles, without sounding too much like a Republican or a Democrat, depending on the issue. But now there is. It's called Downsize DC. Now, we produce radio ads, we do interviews, we've done TV ads in the past. We also produce tools that you can use to help mass market libertarianism in your circle of friends, family, and associates. Our radio ads deal with a hot, specific legislative issue. And by hot, I mean there's a bright political marketer once told a friend of mine that if Dan Rather's not talking about it, I can't fundraise for it. Now, he didn't mean Dan Rather literally. He was speaking of the major establishment news media. Raising interest, creating a spark of activity, for us, depends on choosing the right issue. In the radio spots, we invite people to come to our website, downsizedc.org. There they can register and find out who their representatives and senators are. Using our proprietary electronic lobbyist mechanism, they can tell their senators and representatives that they care about this issue, that they're paying attention to what he's doing. It's quick and simple. Because the message is signed with the information they registered with, including their name, address, and phone number, it's more likely to be counted and read by the congressional office. And once someone has done this, they've taken the trip to Pittsburgh. You see, they've done something immediate and important. They've done something that's an activist step. But why isn't this random? Because the information they're registered with is also secured by the system, unless they specifically opt. They're given the opportunity, but most do not. The leftist MoveOn.org was built this way. They started with an email to 100 people, and in less than 5 years' time, grew to over 2 million. It was MoveOn that made an obscure small state governor the frontrunner for the Democratic nomination. His name was Howard Dean. Now, Howard blew it, but MoveOn, well, they moved on. During last year's presidential campaign, and I'm from Ohio, we saw a ton of ads there. It seemed like they were everywhere. Please understand, once folks are on our list, we communicate with them over and over. We show them the inconsistencies of conservatism, the emotional slipperiness of liberalism. We can present them with a consistent, logical way of looking at the world. I don't know about you, but being a libertarian for me saves me a lot of time. I don't need to read every angle of every issue to know what's going on. I have some rules of thumb. A friend of mine calls them heuristics. Courtesy of my libertarian outlook. I just need the most sketchy facts about a particular situation, and I can usually fill in the blanks. I usually just need the names. This is a valuable skill, and our ideas are very powerful. Have you noticed that once our ideas begin to get in people's heads and they start to rattle around, maybe this happened for you, it did for me when I was first exposed to libertarianism, that they tend to become more libertarian over time, not less? That's how the freedom train works. And with each campaign we pursue, we're building a larger and larger force. And as this force gets bigger and bigger, it becomes more and more valuable to the entire movement, a resource that the movement can tap into. As you can see, there's nothing random about our acts of liberty at Downsize DC. And if we keep plugging, we too can implement Operation Everywhere, just like Mulan did. And I can think of nothing more important to do with my time. People ask me, how can I support so many libertarian groups? There seem to be so many of them. Well, here's something you can do. Build a bigger and bigger base they can tap into. Long term, that's how we're all going to change things. After all, politicians are merely opportunists looking for a parade to march in front of. At Downsize DC, we're building a parade for liberty. At Downsize DC, we're fulfilling the objectives of more libertarians and building towards Operation Everywhere. To get there, we must avoid random acts of liberty. That's why I encourage you to fill this card and get it back to us. We want you on our freedom train. Thank you very much.